Hi, my name is Lavinia. This is Peter. Welcome to Games Made Easy, a channel where we learn board games quickly and easily. Today, thanks to my friend Robert, I want to teach you and give you tips on how to play Great Western Trail. I love this game and how completely different it is each time we play it. Great Western Trail is exciting. It's one of those games I'm always up for playing, and it has this crazy sense of urgency towards the end of the game to finish as best as possible. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the like button. It helps a lot. In Great Western Trail, you play a rancher taking your herd of cows from Texas to Kansas City to ship them by train to the big cities. The better and more varied your herd is when you get to Kansas City, the more money you make. To get there, you'll have to navigate hazards and make the most of the buildings along the Great Western Trail. You have cowboys to get more and better cows, craftsmen to build new buildings on the trail, and engineers to make your train engine go faster. At the end of the game, once enough cows have reached Kansas City, the player with the most points wins the game. To set up the game, start by placing the main board in the middle of the table, and each player takes one player board. One player count tile, which you place like that for a 3-player game or like this for a 4-player game. Today I'll teach you a 2-player game, so you put it back in the box. For now, place your Cattleman meeple near your player board. Place your 14 discs on each colored disc like this. Only leave the 2 gray spaces here empty. Place your certificate marker on the 0 here. And finally, place your train engine on the Kansas City station here. Now you can look at the 14 starting cows making up your starting herd deck. You know this is your deck because the star matches your color. Each cattle card represents a type of cow with a specific color, a breeding value, and later in the game you can also buy cows that have victory points. For now, you have 5 gray cows valued at 1 and 9 cows valued at 2, 3 green, 3 white, and 3 black in your herd deck. Shuffle them and pick the top 4. These are the starting cows that make your hand cards. Keep the rest of the deck face down near you. That's your draw deck. You will use these cards throughout the trail to gain money and rewards. Also, the cards that you have in hand when you reach Kansas City will determine your income. Value is important, of course, but variety too, as duplicates are not counted. So for this hand you will make 1 + 2 + 2, so you can sell this herd for only $5, as this one does not count. To ensure you get better herds, throughout the game you will be able to buy more cows in the cattle market. These will have a value of 3, 4, or 5 when you reach Kansas City, and also bring 1 to 7 victory points at the end of the game. Shuffle the deck, and in a 2-player game, draw 7 cards face up. It'll be 10 or 13 for a 3 or 4-player game as indicated here. Now let's start populating the main board. Take the 54 worker tiles, 22 teepee tiles, and 18 hazard tiles. Place them face down and sort them out in 3 piles, number 1, 2, and 3. Now pick a random tile number 1 and place it here if it's a green or blue teepee. Here, if it's a flood hazard. Here for drought hazards. And here for rockfall hazards. Always starting from the lowest number. If the area is already full, return the tile to Kansas City Supply and pick a new tile. Once you've placed 7 number 1 tiles on the board, start revealing number 2 tiles. These are all workers. Place them face up here, starting on the first row and just beneath the player count. Place the next one to the right until the first row is full. Then place the next one on the left of the second row, still beneath the number of players. Stop just before the dash circle space. There you place the job marker token. Finally, you need to fill the 6 foresight spaces. Place 2 number 1 tiles face up here, 2 number 2 tiles here, and 2 number 3 tiles there. Now we place the 5 station master tiles. Place them randomly like that along the railroad track. And now it's time to place the neutral building tiles in the Great Western Trail. For your first game, place them on each letter from A to G. For subsequent games, shuffle and place them randomly. You also have private buildings you can build throughout the game. For your first games, only use the side A. Once you know the game better, randomly pick side A or B for each building. Now all players will use the same setup and no one can flip them during the game. Now it's time to shuffle the 4 starting objectives. They're the ones with the grey background. Then you're going to give 1 to each player, and if you're less than 4 players, put the spare ones back in the box. Also shuffle the 24 objective cards. Reveal the top 4 cards and place the rest face down. Finally draw for first place and then distribute money accordingly. The first player will get $6, the second $7. If there's a third player, they would get $8 and a fourth player $9. Now we're ready to start playing. The first round is a little different as players don't move. Instead, each player in turn order places the cattleman on a neutral building of their choice and takes the corresponding actions. More than one player can pick the same starting building. Then in the following turns, each player must go through 3 stages. A, B, and C as shown here. A is to move, as your cattleman must move from its current location. B is to use the action or actions of your new location. And finally, C is to draw up to the hand limit. Let's have a look at the first stage, which is where you move your cattleman and how it works. At the start of each turn, you have to move your cattleman forward along the trail. You cannot stay where you are and cannot move backward. You move between 1 and 3 locations at the beginning of the game. Later in the game, once you've upgraded it, you will be able to move your cattleman up to 4 and even 5 steps per turn. To count these steps, only consider the neutral and private buildings, a teepee or a hazard. If the space is empty, it does not count. If the trail forks, pick the way you want to go. Also, if you move through or stop at a location with black or green hands, you will have to pay dollars. Their cost varies depending on the number of players. For a 2-player game, they both cost $2. If you run out of money to pay the green or black hands, pay what you can and then continue without paying. This is the only time in this game where you will be able to do that. Everywhere else, you will have to pay full price. If you go through a hazard or a teepee, you pay the bank. However, if you go through the building of another player, you pay that player. Whether you run out of movement or you choose to stop, the location where you stop will be the location you use to take the actions in stage B. Now, if you stop in another player's building, a teepee or a hazard, you will only be allowed to take 1 single auxiliary action, but that I'll explain later. For now, I want to explain the local actions you will take when you stop in a neutral building or one of your buildings. Depending on the building, you can take 1 action like here, or 2 like these, or 3 like this one. When there's a slash in between the actions, it means you pick one or the other. Also, if the building is on a risk action like this, you can also take it. You have to perform at least 1 action, and you can perform each action only once, but you can do it in any order that you want. Now I want to show you all the different actions, starting with the simplest one, which is selling cows for money. On these locations, discard the card or cards marked by a red arrow and collect money or other benefits. For example, for this one, you have to discard a black cow card. This means to take it from your hand and place it face up in your personal discard pile and then collect $2 from the bank. Here, you need 2 cows of the same type to collect $4. Here, for 1 card, gain 2 certificates. And this one, discard 1 card and move your engine 1 space forward on the railroad track. Now let's have a look at how we can hire more workers. On this neutral building and this personal building, you can hire workers from the job market. Cowboys will help you buy better cows cheaper. Craftsmen will help buy better buildings, and engineers will make your train engine move faster. You'll need to pay dollars to hire them 1 at a time. Each cost dollars is indicated here and adding the cost indicated here. So for this cowboy, pay $6 minus 0, so $6. Then place it on your player board on the leftmost empty space of the corresponding row. If in that turn you want to buy a second worker, let's say an engineer, you pay another 6 here plus 2 more, so 8. If, however, you use your building, you would pay $1 less. But you can only buy 1 worker. Keep in mind, you can never pick a worker from the row with the job market token. If there is an immediate action when you're about to place a worker and you can take it, you should, because later on you won't be able to. So here, for instance, if you have a grey cow card in your hand, which you want to discard, you can gain 1 certificate. If the row is already full, you cannot hire that type of worker anymore. Also, at the end of the game, you gain victory points for each worker in these 2 columns. Another possible action is to buy more cattle from the cattle market and improve your herd value. This neutral building and this private building let you buy more cows from the cattle market. It is the only place where you can buy more cows. To see what you can buy, check how many cowboys you have. Then check the cards available. Look for value and highest victory points. For instance, if you have only 1 cowboy, you can buy a value 3 for $6 or a value 4 for $12. Here we already have 2 cowboys, so I can buy a value of 5. When you have 4 or 5 cowboys, everything becomes a lot cheaper, but also you can buy more than 1 cow at a time. You could use 4 to buy this one and have 1 left to buy that one. When the job market token crosses one of these yellow arrow icons, and if you have less cattle than at the beginning of the game, you can replenish the cattle market up to the limit. Keep the current cards in play. If by any chance the cattle market deck is empty, do not add more cards. Also, like for setup, arrange the cards face up with lowest cards on the left and showing the victory points. Remember that you're not actually spending your cowboys, you're using them, so they will stay in your player board. Also, when you buy the cows, they will go face up in your discard pile. Now, let's have a look at how you can buy a new objective or 1 more certificate with this neutral building. If you want to pick a new objective, pick one of the 4 cards in play and replenish them. Objectives are usually about collecting cows or buildings, picking up teepees, hazards, having discs on stations or in San Francisco. For these, you must match the color of the cows or the teepee, but the hazard can be any color. If during the game you pick up another objective with more of the same requirements, like these for instance, you will need to have 3 blue teepees, not just 2, as you cannot use the same teepee, cow or hazard or station twice. When you pick up a new objective card, you're going to place it face up in your discard pile. Later in the game, when you have it in your hand, you can choose to play it before you move your cattleman or as your first or last action during stage B. At this time, you immediately resolve the bonus shown on the top left corner of the card, replacing cards from your hand, performing auxiliary actions, moving your cattleman while ignoring cost of hands, moving your train forward or gaining $2. This also means that you commit to delivering the objective and will lose the amount of victory points indicated here if you do not fulfill it. For instance, here you would lose 2 points. Finally, note that you could also use the objective card to discard it on this private building to gain 2 certificates. Remember that you're not compelled to put an objective in play. You may very well decide till the end of the game what to do with them. Now, let's look at all the buildings and all the areas where you can move your engine along the railroad track. For these 4, move is indicated, either 1, 2, 3, or 4 spaces. For these 2, move by the number of engineers on your player mat. So in this case, 1 times 3, your engine can move up to 3 movements forward. If there's another engine on the track, simply ignore, as there can never be more than 1 train per space on the track, so you jump over it. You have to move at least 1 space, but you do not have to move your full movement. However, if you stop somewhere on the way, you forfeit any excess movement. If you stop at a turnout space, you're going to have to decide immediately whether you're just going to stay there, or if that station hasn't been upgraded, whether you're going to upgrade it. If you don't already have a disc on it and decide to upgrade the station, you must immediately pay the upgrade cost mentioned on the right of the station space and take a disc anywhere from your player board and place it on the station space. Just keep in mind that discs coming from white spaces can go on both white and black stations. However, discs that come from black spaces can only be placed on stations with black corners. Now, as soon as you upgrade the station, and if it's still available, you have the option of taking the station master tile. This, you have to do it at this point. If you pass it, then you won't be able to do it again. To take the station, take one of the rightmost workers on your player board and appoint it as the station master by placing it here. Note that if you reveal an immediate action, you could later in the game benefit from it again. The top part of the tile shows some cool benefits. They can be either immediate, like collecting a permanent certificate, $2, a hazard, or a teepee. The bottom of the station master tile shows points you can score at the end of the game. 3 victory points per pair of certificates or a pair of teepees or hazards, 1 victory point for each worker you have on your player mat, and 3 victory points for pairs of objective cards in play. Keep the tile in your player board. It will stay there until the end of the game. Now would be a good time to talk about the auxiliary actions on your player board. As you place more and more discs on the board, you reveal new possible actions. When you see one of these symbols, you can take one type of auxiliary action. If both are revealed, you can take the same action twice. You cannot take 2 different actions at the same time. Now, this one here, you can get 1 coin. On this one, you can discard one of your cards on the discard pile and get a new card. This one you would pay 1 coin to bring your engine back 1 step, and you get 1 certificate as well. On this one you pay 1 coin, but you take your engine forward 1 step. This one here, you bring your engine back 1 step and you can discard a card from the game. All this only applies for neutral buildings and your private buildings. On buildings that belong to other players, you can only take 1 auxiliary action. Now, let's have a look at how you place your private buildings on the main board. This neutral building and these immediate actions here and here let you add new buildings on an empty space or one of your own buildings. What you can afford depends on the number of craftsmen you have and the buildings you've already built, as all your private building tiles show a number of craftsmen on the top left corner. This represents how many craftsmen you need to build that building. So for all these buildings you would need at least 1, for these 2, etc. You need to have at least that number of craftsmen on your player board. Then multiply this number by the cost indicated, either $2 per craftsman here or $1 per craftsman here and here. If you are upgrading a building already on the board, you can subtract what you've already paid. So, for instance, you use the neutral building action to upgrade this value 1 building. You use your 3 craftsmen to build a value 4 building. Pay immediately $6 and return the first building to the box. Where you build buildings is important too, as you want to place them where it helps you and hinders other players. Remember that if you place a building with a black or green hand, players passing through will pay you instead of the bank. Also, you can use some of these buildings that allow you to move your cattleman forward. If you do, you can play again, so placing this one at the right place can make a huge difference. Finally, some buildings reward you for buildings you have in the forest, like this one, which gives you dollars, and this one to move your train engine. So placing your buildings in the forest can pay off. There are a lot of other buildings and actions, and they're quite clear on the rulebook. Check them out. However, there are 3 buildings I would like to explain a bit more. This one lets you take the action of 1 directly adjacent building, even if it's another player's private building. There can be no empty spaces or any other location in between. This one is really powerful, as you can upgrade any train station following standard rules anywhere behind your engine, even taking the train master tile. Finally, this one allows you to perform an extraordinary delivery. You can move your engine backward. Do not count occupied or turnout spaces. Then choose a city empty of one of your discs and whose value is equal to or lower than the number of spaces you've just moved. If this triggers any delivery action, like here, perform it as usual. Note that you do not have to pay any transport cost. If your engine has landed on a turnout space, you may now upgrade its train station following the usual rules. Then this local action ends. If you're still with us, congrats! We have reached Kansas City. Here, you must stop, and we're going to complete the following 5 cool actions, and they have to be done in the correct order. Start with foresight and carry out step 1. Place one of the 2 tiles available here in its corresponding section. Go to step 2, pick one of the 2 workers and place it in the job market on the rightmost available spot. If that's the job market token, shift it 1 step down. Then proceed to step 3. Pick 1 tile and place it either along the trail or in the job market. Now proceed to step 4. It's time to sell your hand of cows and collect your income. Reveal your entire hand. Don't forget to add certificates if you want. Add up the value of all your individual cows, ignore duplicates, and collect that amount from the bank. And then discard your entire hand to your personal discard pile. Then proceed to the final step, the delivery of your cows to the big city. Take a token from your player board and place it in one of the empty cities. Follow the wide versus dark corner spaces I explained earlier. If you pick up this disc, collect $3 immediately. For those increasing your hand limit, you'll need to pay $5 immediately for each. These 2 are free but allow you to collect more certificates. The city you delivered to cannot be farther than the total value of your income. In this round it was 6, so the farthest you can reach is Colorado Springs. Keep in mind that depending on the station, it can give you or cost you victory points at the end of the game. Here you'd lose 6 points and collect $6 immediately. If you have both tokens here, you'd lose 3 points and here 1 point. However, if you have these 2, you'd get 6 points. If you have these, 8. And if you have these, 4 points. And that one, 6 points at the end of the game. With these 2, or these 2, you pick immediately a new objective card. Also note that San Francisco is the only city where you can place more than 1 disc. Score 9 points for each disc you manage to place there. Now check if you have any transport costs depending on the location of your engine. If your engine is past that destination city, then it's free. However, if it's behind, you pay $1 for each red cross separating the engine from the city. In this case, it would have been 2. Then perform the delivery action like collecting $6 or picking up a new objective card. Finally, refill each of the empty foresight spaces. Return your cattleman to the lower right corner of the game board and you're ready for a new round around the Great Western Trail. The third stage in your turn is to replenish your hand to the limit as indicated in your player board. Draw as many cards from your personal draw deck up to your hand limit. If you've just been to Kansas City, you're going to replenish your entire hand. It's 4 at the beginning of the game. Later in the game, you should increase the hand limit to 5 or even 6. If you're running out of cards, reshuffle your discard pile and draw the top cards as needed. Then it's the next player's turn. As soon as a player moves the job market token across the red arrow, that triggers the end of the game. That player will play their last turn. All the other players will also play one last turn. And then it's time to score the points using this notepad. 1 victory point for every $5. You sum all the victory points on private buildings placed on the game board. You sum and subtract all victory points with disc on city crest. Sum all the VPs for each train station with your disc on it. Add all the VPs for collected hazards. Add the VPs for your cattle cards. Check all the objective cards still in your deck. Play those you want to put in play and score each individual card. Each item can only score once. Add all the VPs from individual tasks of the station master tiles. Four victory points for each worker placed on the 5th and 6th space of any row in the workers section. 3 VPs for clearing the disc in the rightmost movement space. 2 VPs for the player who initiated the end of the game and took the job market token. The player with the most points wins the game, and if you tie, you share the win and you play again. Now, my tips to win at Great Western Trail are: try to go to Kansas City around 5 to 7 times. If you don't, you won't earn enough money to make the most of the game. Buying cows is essential because it not only gives you points and money, it lets you reach farther along the railroad track. Try to get permanent certificates because sometimes that +1 is going to be a lifesaver. Whatever your path to victory is, you're going to have to hire. Try to do it at the right time. As my friend Robert likes to say, stick to the plan in this game and go all out in the direction you've chosen. The game is very different each time you play it, and it's wonderful for that. But that means that you should study the map, the hazards, the cards you get, everything before you pick your strategy to victory. So that's how you play Great Western Trail. It's a fabulous game. I will be doing a video on the expansion because I think it is the way to play it. It makes the game even better. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the video description. We'll make more games easy soon. Bye now.